First up on the show, a truce between Israel and Hamas has entered its fourth and potentially the last day. In the span of 3 days, Hamas has released 58 hostages in exchange for Israel releasing 117 Palestinian prisoners. However, Hamas has expressed its willingness to extend the 4-day truce on one condition. It wants Israel to release more Palestinians in order to prolong the ceasefire in the ongoing conflict. However, the Israeli government says that an extension of the truce will depend on a list of potential hostages to be released by Hamas, which must include babies and small children. Otherwise, the assault in Gaza will continue as the deal expires. And they will continue their attempts to wipe out Hamas.
The framework remains in place for the release of more hostages after tonight's batch, providing an additional 1 day of hostage release pause for every 10 additional hostages who are released. When Hamas stops releasing hostages under the existing framework, Israel will return to realizing our 3 goals with full force: eliminating Hamas, ensuring that Gaza never again pose a threat to the people of Israel, and of course releasing all of our hostages. Our hearts are with the freed hostages, but our minds are, of course, first and foremost with those still being held cruelly by Hamas without access to the Red Cross, in sheer violation of any standard of humanity.
Hamas has released another 17 hostages on Sunday, including a 4-year-old American-Israeli Abigail Idan. 39 Palestinian prisoners and detainees, all teenagers, were also released on Sunday. Among the hostages released by Hamas were also foreign nationals, as the U.S. and regional players continue to broker negotiations and urge for an extension of the truce deal. This is what the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu had to say.
מציאות שאין לה הורים. אין לה הורים, אבל יש לה עם שלם שמחבק אותה, ואנחנו נדאג לכל צרכיה. אבל מעבר לזה, אני רוצה להגיד, יש גם מתווה שאומר שאפשר לשחרר כל יום נוסף עוד 10. זה דבר מבורך. אבל באותה נשימה אמרתי גם לנשיא, שבגמר המתווה אנחנו חוזרים בכל העוצמה.
Currently, Israel and Hamas are split over the lists of Israeli hostages and Palestinian prisoners, which are due to be released today. Israel is reviewing the final list of hostages slated for release. Qatari mediators are in the nation for an indefinite period of time and are working to strengthen the coordination during the operation, which also involves aid delivery to Gazans on time. Delegations from European Union member states and Arab nations have also arrived in Barcelona to discuss the recent truce in the Israel-Hamas war. 42 delegations are scheduled to gather at the meeting, which is chaired by EU's foreign policy chief Joseph Borrell and Jordan's foreign minister Ayman Safadi. Israel is not attending this meeting.
The pause should be extended to make it sustainable and long-lasting while working for a political solution. A political solution that should allow us to break the cycle of violence once and for all. The longer we allow the extremists to set the agenda, the more extremism will spread, not only in the region, but also affecting us in Europe as well.
I call for an extension of the pause. This would allow for much needed relief to the people of Gaza and the release of more hostages. The suffering we have seen underlines the need for a lasting political solution.
And China's top diplomat Wang Yi will also be visiting New York this week to hold a United Nations Security Council meeting on the Israel-Hamas conflict.
中国作为联合国安理会本月轮值主席国，将于11月29日举行安理会巴以问题高级别会议。中共中央政治局委员、外交部长王毅将赴纽约主持安理会会议。
And our correspondent Jody Cohen spoke to a family member of one of the released Israeli hostages. Listen in to what they had to say.
Quite well. Not a bed like here in the hospital, but They used to sleep on the floor. I don't want to say anything about the conditions of living and where they used to live, because we need to keep another hostages in the Gaza Strip in life, and every word it's, you know, it's a danger for them. So we are not allowed to tell anything about more than I told you.
Right, and Jody Cohen is now joining us live for the very latest updates from Israel. And well, Jody, what more can you tell us about the extension of this pause? We heard the Israeli spokesperson there saying it all depends on that list that is likely to come out from the Hamas side. If not, then our military actions will continue in Gaza.
Hi, Bayravi. Yes, so this is day 4 of that 4-day agreement, and today we're expecting 11 Israeli hostages to be released. Now, I'm at the Schneider Children's Hospital. Behind me, you can see 40 yellow ducks laid out to represent the 40 children who were taken hostage by Hamas in Gaza. And hopefully, at the end of today, they'll be able to remove 30 of these. We do know that 10 children are expected to stay in Gaza, and discussions are underway as to whether or not this agreement will be extended. We know that Israel has said that there can be an extra 1 day's pause in the fighting if Hamas agrees to release 10 further hostages. We're hearing that those discussions revolve around whether or not more women and more children will be released, also possibly some elderly men as well. There are also discussions taking place around today's hostages that are going to be released. We're hearing that the Israeli government received the list that was released by Hamas of which hostages they are releasing, and according to reports it might not be as expected. We are hearing reports potentially that some children are going to be split up from their mothers, and that is in violation with what Hamas had agreed to in the Qatar brokered negotiations, and that again happened 2 days ago. So it remains to be seen if these families, if the mothers will be returned with their children and they'll be reunited. But as we know, many of the families, many of the hostages who have returned, well, of course the families are absolutely delighted to have them back. We also know that many family members remain inside Gaza, still hostage, and as you heard from the grandmother there earlier of some of the hostages, they're being very careful about what they say, very mindful of the fact that family members are still being kept hostage in Gaza.
Right, Jody, thanks very much indeed for joining us with all the very latest that's happening as far as the negotiations for the next round of hostage release is concerned.